Hi, my name's Keith Cooper from Northlight Images, and I was asked an interesting question this morning: what printer should I get to make money off? I genuinely do welcome questions from people, even if a lot of them leave me a bit perplexed and thinking, well, what do they actually mean? The reason for that is because that often gives me ideas for these videos and various different aspects. So I'm going to have a look at aspects of making money from your printer and why you might choose a particular printer, why you might not. Because the person who asked me said that one of my reviews or videos had actually put them off a particular printer. Now, they didn't expand why, but it's, for myself, that's actually a good result. It means they've gone away and thought about it. Now, if the person recognises this, thank you for asking. Feel free to drop me an email if you like with more details of what it is you wanted to know. I may have a specific answer for you, but in general, they wanted to know about making money. There was no specified product, which is always tricky to answer. But they also added on a budget. Now, on a budget, everybody has a budget when you're setting stuff up like this. I do a lot of testing of printers. This is a Canon Pro 300. That's when I had Epson ET8550 here. You can see some cards I printed on there. Those were actually a scanned watercolour and then printed on a fine art paper, a specific media for cards. It was quite a nice. There are lots of nice media. I've done loads of videos about stuff about this. So when they said on a budget, I take that to mean cheap. The problem is you want cheap, you get cheap in so many more ways than you initially thought of. Now, I'll come back to some examples of specific printers that are potentially good for this, but the real problem is that the whole idea of making money from your printer involves a profit. You have to be doing some aspect of producing a product or something that you can sell. That means doing what? Are you making greetings cards of your work? Well, if you want, for example, if you produce watercolours and you want to produce prints of them, then the scanning itself can be a bit tricky. I've covered that in the detailed review of the 8550, because the scanner on top, as to how to get a good reproduction of things like watercolours. Now, this is just an out-and-out printer, pigment ink printer. This is a mixed dye and pigment ink printer. Now, the Pro 300 here is superb printer. So, I would naturally, you think, choose this one over that. Well, not really. This one has relatively small ink tanks, this one, or cartridges, and this one has ink tanks, so the inks are cheaper. So it's always a trade-off. But it comes back to, what are you doing with it? Do you have a market for your business idea? Do you have any idea whether what you want to make will sell? It's a splendid idea to be able to just produce something like that and let's see if it sells. Not many people make a successful business, or even if you just want to put it at its bluntest, make any money from doing something like that. The people who just give it a go are people with experience of selling things. So if you have experience of selling craft products, your artworks and various things, you may have a good idea of what additional things will sell with your products. So you might want to make cards. Now, this is a watercolour produced by a friend of mine. I scanned it and produced some cards. I believe she used a few of the cards and sent them to people, so that's great. That was just done as my testing. If I was to look at that from a profitability point of view, well, you have to look at the whole business. The 8550 is an excellent printer, but make sure when you get the cards, you test it in the printer to make sure you're not getting any marks on them or anything like that. The paper feed of this printer, the Pro 300, and the dye-based Pro 200 as well, are massively better than this. If I had to say, the Canon paper feed on this size type of printer is much better than that. If I compare with the huge great printer that's next to it, that's an Epson P5000, absolutely superb printer, brilliant paper handling, but you can't run things like cards through it, and it's not made for something like that. So you have to pick a printer which does what you want. So how many of these things are you going to print? What are you going to make with it? And what are you going to do? What volumes? One of the difficulties is, and here's a range of, these are matte cards. These are square ones, so you'll need a custom paper size. You can't easily do borderless on things like this, on this or on that. There are ranges, so if you think, oh, I'm going to make my cards like this, think again. Right, so they're pre-creased, and they come with envelopes. Very convenient. If you want to do this much, you're going to go for bulk buying. Now, this is for a Pinnacle brand. This is in the UK. This is from Paper Spectrum, now part of Dupli. Other suppliers also produce cards and things like that. But these ones work very well. I use them quite a bit for testing here. Big problem, though, and this goes for this printer and this one, is that you load stuff at the back here. You cannot stack. Most printers, you cannot stack any of these thick cards. One or two of them you might get away with stacking one or two cards, but essentially you're going to be stacking cards in here. They're going to print. This one prints faster than this one, by the way. You're going to do that. You're going to wait for it to be done. You're going to take it out, match it up with its envelope. You're going to, there's an awful lot of faffing about. And yes, people, when they look at costs, they think of the inks, and the inks for that are obviously cheaper than this. But what about your time? How are you valuing your time? Now, I produce on various printers here. I've produced a few cards for Christmas, a few cards for special events, the odd birthday card. That's great. I don't mind just loading up a card, coming back a few minutes later, getting the card out of it. That's it. I've done a card. But there's a whole world of difference between me just making the odd few cards just to test them out and to try them out and to send to people, because people like homemade cards. Yeah, some people say it's just me being cheap, but others do appreciate the effort. But if you're doing that, that's fine for that. But if you're doing that and loading stuff, are you going to have someone employed just to load cards all day? More than half a dozen, it gets very tedious. So think carefully about it. In terms of print quality, this is excellent. It's pretty good as well. I would give, because this is pigment inks, I'd give the nod to this one rather than that one. But this is not really made for that sort of stuff. Yes, it works with cards and the likes, and all the settings will cover that. But in a way, this is meant for photos. This is a photo printer. This is much more general purpose. Well, I mean, it has the scanner on it, so it's a much more general purpose one. So think about the business side of it. If you want, you could go with a printer like this. You could use third-party inks in it. But to my mind, using third-party inks in a printer like this, unless you're going to do your own profiling and that, is essentially giving away the quality of this. Most people won't have the kit to do the profiling. So you've got a printer here that you've got for quality, yet you're putting any old inks in it, and you don't know how long they're going to last. Okay, you say they're cards, they're not expected to last long, but even so, think carefully about anything you do with this where you're using different inks. I've heard people say that on the likes of the ink tank printers here, the ones here, there are even cheaper. I'm sure there are even cheaper inks available. If you want to be cheap, there are plenty of opportunities for it. But being cheap and saving a few pence on inks does not get around the fact that you still have to load those sheets up and do things like that. So think very carefully about your time, what you're going to do with it. The actual printer you pick is in many ways largely irrelevant, because if you've not thought about the business side of things, you're going to end up just not doing much. Now, another one, here's this printer here. This is when I did a print on it. It's one of my test images. So it prints very nicely. It's borderless. It's half A4 folded like that, so it prints borderless on this. Would print borderless on that one as well. So yes, if you want a cheap printer, don't go too cheap. If you go for the Canon ink tank printers, they're not bad, but they have a fatal flaw. I'm a Mac user. This is a Mac Studio here driving this. I've got another Mac over in the office here that I use for editing and stuff. On the basic printers for Canons, they're ink tank printers, colour management is effectively broken. So you either have to try and kludge together profiles or accept that your colours are not going to be the quality. Now that's real nuisance that you can't get profiles for it. And that's why I will say there's the Epson ink tank printers, great. There's Canon, this is the 300, the 200. So they're what I would currently suggest for using. But the problem is someone's going to come back to me and say, oh, that's far too expensive. Well, I'm going to say, if it's too expensive, tough. Either find a different, higher value product that you can sell, or go back to the drawing board and look at the market. I get people wanting to print playing cards and things like that on printers like this. Yeah, that's great. They may look all right when they come out. You won't be able to print individual. You'll have to print multiple ones and then chop them up. But I get, you're going to print stuff like this. We'll ignore the problems of double-sided printing because you need special media for that as well. You get these prints out for playing cards, eh? The moment you handle them or touch them, they're going to scratch. They're going to mark. They need lamination. There's all sorts of complexities. So, sorry if that doesn't answer the question specifically, but the answer really is you're asking the wrong question. The printer you want is probably not the question you need to be asking. The printer you want should, in terms of things, come out of your other research on the business side of things. I can't answer the question easily. I need more information. Yeah, well, never mind. I hope that's been of some help. If you've got specific questions, do let me know. I'm happy to answer questions on this, specifically since, I say, people's questions, even simple ones, are what give me ideas for different aspects of video. So thanks for watching, and bye.